In the town on the hill where the apples grow, the church bells ring every hour or so. I took a little walk just to see the ships coming in. The sun rose up right above the highway, black, blue, red, yellow, golden skyway. It's like the day that you jump into the wind. I can't go back down to that water again.
Last Day Today is not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is highly advised. This episode includes descriptions of child death, attempted drowning, religious delusions, and suicide. It may be especially difficult for listeners who have experienced loss or mental health crises. Please take care of yourself as you listen. There was word in town about the family of 6 before there was a headline. Before the press conference, there was a Facebook post from the county sheriff's office. Not even a week old, and this tragedy had already been handed over to a jury. Not the one in a courthouse, but the only real peers the Miller family had: the Amish community. Holmes County, Ohio is home to one of the largest Amish communities in the world. More than half of the county's population is Amish, with most of the 45,000 residents having some relative or relation to someone who's Amish. Crime here is low. The most common deaths are accidents: a buggy struck on the road, a fall on the farm, a mishap with equipment. Death? Here. It's supposed to come from hard work or bad luck. And when it comes, we do our best to accept it. But murder almost never makes its way into the telephone line. I just wanted to tell you that I love you.
My name is Orvis Campbell. It's Orvis. And I'm the Tuscarawas County Sheriff.
Marcus phoned his brother the night before the last day. Somehow it didn't sound normal, not the way he intended. It sounded as strange to Marcus as it did to his brother. And before the night was over, the Miller family had a full intervention at their house. It was evident neither husband nor wife had slept. Their family's concern faded in and out as Marcus thought about what his wife had told him.
It's the end of the world, Marcus. God told me. I heard the voice. He's been telling me. We have to pray so that we can go as a family.
Whatever Marcus managed to affirm to his family that night was enough to send them back out the door, reassured that the weekend would be one of relaxation. Before leaving for the campground, Marcus visited his brother one more time, exchanging camping gear and a few last words. He felt determined, full of discernment. Today was the last day. Atwood is about an hour's drive from Berlin. The second most known Berlin, Ohio. But Atwood, it's an unrecognizable lake to most Ohioans. Nothing like Tappan, nothing like Lake Erie up north. This one is ours. Estimated at 1,500 acres of water, 28 miles of shoreline, wrapped in about 3,000 acres of land and forestry. Friday passed without incident. The Miller family of 6, Marcus, 45, his wife, 40, their twin sons who are 18, their 15-year-old daughter, and their youngest, a 4-year-old boy, arrived at the campsite and settled into the company RV. Since Amish children only attend school through the 8th grade, this would have been the first year that none of the Miller children were in school. A different kind of milestone for the family, marked quietly, without ceremony. It was also the mother's 40th birthday. Under other circumstances, maybe there would have been cake, or family, even a small celebration. Instead, the only object noted in the search warrant was a Bible. The family pulled it out and began to read. And I imagine that continued through the evening, carrying them late into the night. Because by 1:15 a.m. on Saturday morning, things had already begun to unravel.
This is a big picture prepared for us by our friends over here at Muskingum Watershed. Main portion of the lake when you come in, before you enter the actual park, there's a big marina here and a restaurant. It's pretty well known. We intentionally not pointing out where their camper was, but it was over in that area. So at 1:15, him and his wife go there. They do these tasks. They walk back. Then he walks back alone. We have a good independent witness that says, yes, I definitely saw him here. He was wearing these clothes, and he wasn't doing anything odd, but he was at the dock by himself.
Marcus and his wife asked a neighbor for a ride to the dock. Atwood at night is quiet. You can hear laughter way in the distance. People up late. Rows of campers, RVs, tents sit in the dark. Porch lights off. An occasional spark from a campfire dying down. You can hear the lake, alive with the crickets and frogs and all the other things you can't see at night. The only real reason to be awake at 1 a.m. might be to go to the bathroom or get a late shower. But Marcus and his wife went to the dock that early morning for something entirely different.
In her statement, what she says is that she and her husband went to this dock and they jumped in the water because God was speaking to them and telling them to do things. Things to prove their worthiness to God, to show their faith as complete, and they didn't do very well in those. The most bizarre was that God told her to allow herself to be swallowed by a fish. They get up out of the water after a while, and they decide it's silly, and they decide to walk back to where they were staying in a family company-owned RV. When the husband got back to the house, according to the wife, he felt very disappointed in himself because he didn't do very good in his task because he didn't have enough faith and he turned and immediately said, "I'm going back to the lake to swim to the sandbar." Now, the sandbar, I'm not a lake expert, guys, but the sandbar is way over here somewhere, and he's on this little dock. His brother had told us he could swim, but he wasn't a strong swimmer, and she said he left their RV again at about 5:30 in the morning after getting right back home. Keep in mind, he hasn't been asleep at night. The following day, we did run into a witness that put him alone at that dock, wearing the clothes that he left behind at the dock at 6:30 a.m.
Walking down the long wooden dock, Marcus's wife reached out her foot, stepping onto the water, so sure that the voice she just heard told her her faith was strong enough. She could do it. She could walk on water. They failed. Defeated, and at 4:30 or 5 a.m., they had returned to the camper. But Marcus went back. 6:30 was the last time anyone would see Marcus alive.
Sometime just after 8 a.m., and this statement from both her children and other independent witnesses, she is seen loading up the 4-year-old on a golf cart near their RV and taking off very erratically. She flipped the cart at one time. She was seen on 2 wheels another time. The children saw her leave with the 4-year-old, and then a while later she came back. She states that she went to the dock and that she threw the 4-year-old in because that's what she needed to do as an offering to God.
Neighbors waking up that morning may have only heard the sounds of tires squealing as Marcus's wife made her way back towards the RV site. It was the last day.
Drives back to her camper. She picks up a 15-year-old daughter, drives her back to the dock, and makes her get in the lake, and leaves. She drives back one more time, gets her 18-year-old sons, or twins, and she makes them jump in the lake to do some tasks, and they do.
For a moment, it seemed as though the family had passed their tests. The 3 children were allowed out of the water. But first they needed to pray.
The main portion of the lake when you come in, before you enter the actual park, there's a big marina here and a restaurant. It's pretty well known. They climb out of the lake, and at one point, according to the children, she makes them all lay down on the dock with their hands in the water to pray for their little brother and father because they were gone and had gone to heaven.
After the prayers on the dock, their mother began to feel again that the family was not worthy. She loaded her 3 oldest children into the golf cart one more time. Witnesses later say the teens looked terrified.
The only thing that took place at that kayak launch was the mother and the children were witnessed huddling very closely, heads touching, praying very intently next to the water by the kayak launch. So much so that it actually scared some witnesses. They thought they were crying, they were emotional, and they didn't know what was going on.
Leaving the kayak launch, where the 4 had been seen huddled together, praying and crying, they headed toward Marina West.
At about 10:39 a.m. on Saturday, 911 received a call of a golf cart that had gone into Atwood Lake, a woman and 3 children. And to be honest with you, it was reported as an accident. That's how the call came into 911, as an accident. There were actually people chasing the lady, the golf cart, through the grass, yelling at her to hit the brakes because they thought it was, careening out of control. We later find out that that's not the case.
We're out with the mother. She is advising that she threw her 4-year-old son in the lake to give him to God.
By the time Ruth Miller's 40th birthday weekend reached its end, she was drenched in Atwood's murky water, her feet grounded into the soft moss below. The scene around her was chaos. Campers rushed to help, pulling at her arms, trying to lift the mother of four back to shore. When officers and rangers reached Ruth, her voice was quiet, almost fragile. She placed her hand against a ranger's chest and whispered scripture.
O ye of little faith.
The rangers had arrived first, unequipped with body cameras. The recording began only once deputies arrived. What we see from that moment isn't resistance, not rage, but something else. We see a soft-spoken woman in the middle of tragedy, convinced of a world that no one else could see.
But she actually drove this golf cart right between these two buildings, and it hit a stone wall there that makes a barrier to the water, and it flips into the water. As the first witnesses arrived on scene, the golf cart had flipped off the edge of a stone wall. The kids, who were 15 and 18, got out of the vehicle and stood on top of it, and then witnesses thereby helped the woman out of the lake. The first witness that arrives to help is asking the woman, does she need help up? And he tries to help, and she suggests to him not to help her, to just pray for her. And that was the first statement that suggested this was more than an accident at that lake.
To those standing nearby, some with bikes, others watching from camping chairs, the teens looked unharmed. The golf cart was damaged, but nothing more. For a moment, it seemed the story might end right there, like something torn from the Old Testament. And while Jonah was spit back out of the fish, the Millers would not all be spared. Ruth knew it.
They tried to discern and tried to comfort her. She actually attempted to flee for a minute. She was not rational at that moment. She attempted to flee and hide, and was quickly gathered up and brought back to the scene.
She even said,
So if
Do you
we
have
need,
scuba divers?
we're gonna have to call divers in to go to the bottom of the lake.
Please do.
And you're saying
Get the best ones there are. Because this
So-
is a miracle from God, and you will see. You will see.
you're saying your 4-year-old son's down there too?
He's with God.
Where's his body at?
Off of the dock at the hall. Does anybody have a glass of water?
We can get you water.
that brought in multiple dive units, rangers from the Muskingum Watershed Conservancy, fire crews, and eventually the county coroner.
Deputies were dispatched to the call about 10:53. I didn't get advised myself until about 11:41. And at this point, they're starting to put it together and they realize there's a problem.
Her words pointed to one place, the end of the dock. That's where they believed they would find Vincent, her 4-year-old son. By 6:00 p.m., divers surfaced with a small body.
So we began searching and trying to delineate her statement. But we didn't know where in the water. It's a big lake. It's a lot of places. We have divers now focused in a couple of areas, but our main concern is the dock. It's pitch black underwater, so it's all by feel. It's all by sonar. At 6:03 p.m., divers located the 4-year-old only about 10 feet off the dock, and at that time, he was on the bottom of the lake.
The lake was silent, but by then, The story had broken wide open.
We continued searching till about 9:30 p.m. and we had to end the search due to darkness.
Night fell on the last day. A family pulled apart at the seams. The search for Marcus's body was delayed until morning, and Ruth was transported to a locked mental health facility, her condition deemed too fragile for a jail cell. It was a long night, possibly longer than the last. Divers made their way out as the first light broke over Atwood Lake. Ruth had told investigators that Marcus believed God commanded him to swim to the sandbar to prove his worthiness.
So the boats start working further out with sonar, trying to locate anything. They did identify a signal or a blip under the water that they thought was suspicious. And at 8:29 a.m., they located the male 53 yards off the end of the dock on the bottom of the lake.
From there, he was taken into the custody of the coroner's office before both he and Vincent were transported to the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner. It was clear this case was not cut and dry. The children were shattered by the loss of their father and brother. But it wasn't clear that they understood why it had happened or why it shouldn't have.
For us, obviously the recovery efforts end, but for us, the search warrant continues. About 1:49 p.m., Judge Elizabeth Tamakis here of our Common Pleas Court signs the search warrant. I interviewed the children, and I got to speak with the grandparents, and I've developed a relationship with the father's brother. They couldn't be nicer people. As you can imagine, the kids were extremely confused. I can tell you their mindset was that whatever their mother and father says is the way it is. They don't question anything, so when they were told to jump in the lake, they jump in the lake. And that, as a parent of great kids, that's still difficult for me to imagine. I just can't imagine my kids not questioning me, but that's how they're raised, and when you meet them, you can immediately identify that's how they operate. They would try to give us information, but couldn't stop crying. They kept focusing on the fact that they were praying for their dad and little brother.
Sheriff Campbell was standing at the front of a small press room. Local journalists lined one side, Cleveland reporters on the other. Their notepads open, cameras rolling. Everyone searching for context, for the angle they'd soon send out in breaking headlines. But there was really only one question they were waiting on. An answer that had to come down from the prosecutor's office.
I'm going to get back to your other question now because it's the question everybody's waiting to ask. We do expect that likely tomorrow the Tuscarawas County Prosecutor's Office will issue a charge of aggravated murder. It's just something that we're continuing trying to piece together. It sounds very simple, right? That you show up, she says, I threw my son in the lake, but we're trying to put a story that we can all comprehend together and piece this together in a way that the other family can heal. These kids are just devastated. I know the diver that found the little boy personally, and I've known him for many years. And I can tell you that he swam underwater directly upon him, and it immediately affected him. He came out of the water highly emotional. So, but if anything is good that comes out of this, it's the partnerships that we create You know, we trust these guys that we work with so much, and it was a great working experience through the most horrible case.
The weekend of August 23rd slipped into the first days of fall. But this year, the normal rhythm was broken. Marcus and Vincent were returned to their family, prepared for burial by Miller Funeral Care in Sugar Creek, and their 2-day viewing was held in the community center in Winesburg, just steps from the very business that had made Marcus and Ruth a fixture in the community. The Millers were Old Order Amish. Their bishop, chosen by lot, bound to lead until death or until age no longer served him, met with the sheriff and released a statement. The events of this past weekend do not reflect our teachings or beliefs, but are instead the result of mental illness. These events do not reflect the loving and caring family they were always known to be. A joint funeral was held, and as mourners filed out from the wooden pews, they passed another printed out statement from the family. This one was more intimate, closer to a confession. A description of the events that had unfolded 2 weekends ago, a document not released to the press. And by early September, another message began to spread. Ruth has snapped back into reality. She realizes what she did. And she's horrified. It was only a matter of time. If Ruth was stable, she would be ready to move units. And on September 1st, she was transported to the Tuscarawas County Jail from the mental hospital she had been kept. Within 5 days, her scheduled appearance before Judge Elizabeth Tamakis was canceled. An Ohio grand jury had returned indictments, 7 counts.
We are now proceeding in the case entitled The State of Ohio versus Ruth Miller. It is case number 2025 CR 090285. And we are here today for an arraignment. Seated at counsel table is attorney Ian Friedman as well as Madeline Grant. The state of Ohio is represented as well at this table. To your left, my right, is attorney Ryan Steyer. He is our county prosecutor here in Tuscarawas County. You're here today because the Tuscarawas County grand jury met and concluded that they should return an indictment against you. Ms. Miller, in this case, the grand jury returned an indictment that consists of 7 counts. I'm going to read through those. Count 1 of the indictment is the offense of aggravated murder. Count 2, murder. Count 3, an offense known as felonious assault. Count 4, it's an offense known as endangering children. Count 5, domestic violence. Count 6, domestic violence. Count 7, domestic violence, a misdemeanor of the first degree under 2919.25 A.D2. Again, the relevant date, August the 23rd of 2025. Grand jury concluded that there was probable cause to believe that he unlawfully did knowingly cause or attempt to cause physical harm to child victim 4, a family or household member. Ms. Miller, that your attorneys earlier had filed on your behalf, as required by law, if someone intends to do this, a notice of the defendant's plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. I'm going to turn to Attorney Friedman just to confirm that's in fact the plea that should be entered in this case.
That is in fact the plea that we are entering by right at this time.
Okay. And that's what will be done. I will enter a plea then on your behalf of not guilty by reason of insanity. Anything further from the state,
No, Your Honor, thank you.
from the defense counsel?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. If there's nothing further, then the arraignment is concluded and I have remanded back to jail.
Thank you.
You better stand up straight, man. These people hardly recognize you now.
This has been Last Day Today.
Things I would rather do instead.
My name is Mel Leone, and I spent my whole life here in Holmes County.
I just sit here lonesome for you.
Every small town has its
There's
secrets,
a million things I would rather do instead.
but this isn't a small town.
I just sit here lonesome for you.
This is Amish country.
There's a million things I would rather do instead.
Join me for Chapter 2 by subscribing to the podcast or watch the full-length video on YouTube at Last Day Today Media.